Welcome back to the Urbex Dead Mall series, and welcome to the Southern Park Mall in Boardman, Ohio. Boardman, Ohio is part of the Youngstown metro area up in northeast Ohio. This is a really interesting mall, and not really for its architecture, but for reasons we'll get to later on in the video. I have made several visits to this mall over the last few years, and it's always been a thriving mall. Here in 2024, it's still thriving, but I fear that might change in the near future. That's because this mall was recently purchased by Kohan Realty, and we all know their track record. They tend to exploit the industry by buying up malls, running them to the ground, and then selling them off for a quick profit. And for anyone who loves malls, which I'm sure that's pretty much everyone watching this video, Kohan is known as the scumbags that kill off malls. The other reason that I fear this mall might soon be entering a declining state is the fact that rumors are circulating that the Macy's might actually be closing and leaving the mall in the near future. And everyone that follows me on this channel knows that the anchor tenants are the lifeblood of the mall. They help to draw in shoppers that support the inline tenants. Now that we've sifted through the doom and gloom, we're going to head up here and check out the museum. Yes, this mall has a museum going over the history of the mall and the Edward J. DeBartolo Corporation, who was instrumental in developing this property. Since we're taking a look at this small museum here is the history of the Edward J. DeBartolo and Associates. Edward J. DeBartolo was born in a small suburb of Youngstown, Ohio, and is regarded as the pioneer of the suburban shopping center. Edward would begin his career after graduating from the University of Notre Dame with a degree in civil engineering in 1934. In the early years, he would help out his stepfather with a family paving and general contracting company that operated a strip mine in East Palestine, Ohio. You know, the town that's now famous for the train crash and chemical spill that even to this day is still affecting the residents of the town. During World War II, he would serve in the Pacific Theater with the Army Corps of Engineers and save up all of his pay, hoping to eventually start up his own business. After DeBartolo's service in the war, he would start up his own company in 1944, constructing gas stations, supermarkets, and other single-purpose buildings. In 1948, he would start building subsidized housing for the World War II veterans just south of Youngstown in Boardman, Ohio. During this time, he noticed a lot of people moving out of Youngstown into less urban communities, and he had a hunch that these people would enjoy some kind of a cultural center or centralized place to shop. This would lead to the eventual birth of the modern shopping center and suburbanization. After World War II, many factors would come into play that would contribute to the eventual development of what we know today as the modern mall. Following World War II, the economy was quite strong, and then came the baby boomer generation, which was dumping more consumers into the market than there were existing retailers. With the increase in population, the country's lackluster public transportation system couldn't transport all the people from the suburbs into the downtown areas where most of the shopping was. Also around this time, the average family's disposable income was increasing, giving the average shopper more buying power than ever. And so, in 1948, DeBartolo would build the Belmont Plaza, his first ever strip-style shopping center. It would be called a strip-style shopping center, mainly because each store was arranged side by side in a long strip. DeBartolo would then rent out these spaces to individual stores for a small part of their profit. This was the very beginning of the birth of the modern shopping mall that we know today. And of course, we still have strip malls, and they're very prevalent across America. And to be honest, I kind of hate them. I'd much rather have a full-on mall. Then, in 1951, DeBartolo would go into huge debt to construct his first major shopping center, the Boardman Plaza. Most local businessmen just thought this plaza would fail, but it was actually a huge success, prompting DeBartolo to actually purchase an airplane and begin selecting Midwestern cornfields near the intersections of major highways for his shopping centers. And by the late 1950s, he would earn the nickname Plaza King because of the numerous shopping centers he had built. In 1960, he would purchase the Thistledown Racing Club in a suburb of Cleveland for $5.1 million. The plan would be to eventually build a large-scale mall on the property. By 1965, he had built over 100 strip malls. 1966 would see the opening of the Summit Mall in Akron, Ohio, and put the company at the forefront of mall development on a large scale. It was also noteworthy that at the time, the Summit Mall was the only fully enclosed regional mall in Ohio. And this would kickstart the DeBartolo explosion as he would build over 31 regional shopping malls over the next 10 years and become an industry leader. Now, of course, I can't go over the entire history of the DeBartolo Corporation here in this video because it would take up the entire thing, and I know you guys want to hear the history of this mall. But I will say that he was highly instrumental in the development of modern retail and shopping as we know it today. So what we were just walking through is called the DeBartolo Commons, and it's an outdoor space for sports, and you can even rent it out. All right, you guys, here at Southern Park Mall in Boardman, Ohio, and you may recall all Route 21s in the United States closed down. Well, this is definitely after all the closures, and this is one of the first Route 21s to open back up, so let's take a look at it. I didn't film a whole lot in this store, mainly because nothing much had changed since the closure and reopen. I was walking around this store, and yes, that's awesome to have Route 21 back, but there's a reason that they failed. And yet, they're opening stores back up and they haven't changed a thing. Still the same old clothes, still the same quality, still the same prices, still the same everything. And it just sort of puzzles me. So are they just going to re-fail because they're doing the same thing that they always have? I was really hoping that they would have went back to the glory days, back when they had all the awesome pop culture t-shirts. And I know they have some still, but not nearly the amount and the quality that they used to have. So I don't know, leave a comment down below and let me know. Do you think Route 21 is just destined to fail again, or will they actually finally succeed? The Southern Park Mall was named after a historic racing facility that was about 1.5 miles south of the mall's current location. Unfortunately, the racetrack no longer exists. However, you can go see the Southern Park Stables, which were added to the National Register of Historic Places on July 10th of 1986. This is one of the only remaining pieces of the horse racing facility. The mall was originally planned as a joint venture between Youngstown-based developer William M. Cafaro and the DeBartolo Corporation, also from Youngstown, Ohio. DeBartolo would end up buying out Cafaro's interest in the project in 1968, going on to be the sole mall developer. The mall would originally have 3 anchors and a total of 905,600 square feet of retail space. The first anchor to open would be Sears in 1969, along with a junior anchor, Woolworth's. April of 1970 would see the addition of a J.C. Penney, along with a local department store named Strauss. It would be relocated from DeBartolo's Greater Boardman Plaza that was located approximately 1 mile west of the mall. Some of the other notable stores that would open with the mall would include a Gray Drugs, Kroger, and the Southern Park Theater. The Joseph Horn Company out of Pittsburgh would begin construction on a 4th anchor in June of 1972 and would open in July of 1973. It wouldn't be until the latter half of the 1980s until we would start to see department stores changing around. The Strauss store would become a Kaufmann's department store, and the Joseph Horn would become a Dillard's. Heading toward the new millennium, the mall was still doing really well, because in 1997, it would undergo an extensive renovation just shortly after the DeBartolo Corporation would be merged with the Simon Property Group. Simon would spend $19 million making major improvements to the interior of the mall, adding a food court and a Cinemark Tinseltown USA 7 movie theater at the southern edge of the mall's property. It's really unfortunate that we lost the DeBartolo Corporation to the Simon Property Group. And no, I don't hate Simon Properties. They do a fine job actually managing all of their malls, or at least most of their malls. I just don't like the way that they Simonize them. For everyone that isn't familiar with that term, that's basically when you take a mall and you strip out all of its character and just make it kind of like a white, bland, boring box. Just think of like a liminal space type thing. And in my opinion, a good mall should transport you all the way back to when the mall was built. You know, the prime time of the mall, all the way from the 60s to the 80s or even early 90s. Of course, all while still staying up to date and not feeling just tired and old. And Simon Properties just rips all the character away, and it's so sad. And I often wonder what a mall like Southern Park or any of the other Simonized malls used to look like. Some of them I've actually gotten to experience and watch be Simonized, and I hate it. It hurts my soul. So I'm not going to sit here and just rattle off a bunch of stores that came and went, because going into the 2000s, we had a lot of that, and even to this day, we still do. Things like the Kaufmans would go out of business and be rebranded to Macy's. In April of 2014, Simon Properties would announce the sale of the Southern Park Mall to its spin-off, the Washington Prime Group. Up until 2018, the mall was doing really well. They didn't have any vacant anchor spaces and very little to, if any, vacant inline tenants. Unfortunately, this would somewhat change in April of 2018 as the Sears would announce they'd be closing their location after 49 years. Now, this really wouldn't be a jump start to the downward spiral of this mall because even to this day, it's doing pretty well. However, it would kickstart some anchors kind of leaving, because in 2019, the Dillards would then announce that they would be closing their store and leaving. This would leave the mall with only 2 operating anchors and 2 vacant ones. So, during 2019, in a redevelopment effort from the Washington Prime Group, they would tear down the Sears building and begin the construction on the DeBartolo Commons, which would add some small exterior storefronts while decreasing the overall square footage of the mall. The name would be chosen as a nod to the original developer of the mall, and the DeBartolo Commons would officially open in 2021, adding recreational spaces and restaurants to the complex. This brings us to the present, 2024, and the footage that you're looking at, which was also shot in 2024. Unfortunately, it was recently announced that the mall was going to be purchased by Kohan Realty, and for any mall enthusiast, that's like, kind of like a death blow to the mall. I don't know. What do you guys think about this new purchase? I know that Kohan does not have a good track record, and they're usually buying up malls just to suck the life out of them. So is this mall just doomed? Is it going to fail now that it's under a new owner that doesn't probably care about the place? I don't know. I'd really like to know your thoughts on that, so leave a comment down in the comment section below. One other thing that I'm going to start doing, and I have started doing, is documenting some of the anchor stores that are at these malls, because I realized recently that the anchor stores often close before the entire mall does, and then it's like, oops, I don't have any footage of the inside of some of these anchors. And every now and then you'll come across an anchor that has some interesting architecture, like here in this Macy's. Now, from the outside of this department store, it looks like it has one of those domes like you'd see at the Famous Bar locations that were once throughout the St. Louis area, and a couple of those department stores that I think they're now Macy's still retain the iconic dome. They're amazing. So I was expecting to come into this location and see this awesome dome, you know, very similar to the ones in St. Louis, and I was just super disappointed to see that where's the dome? You can see it from the outside clearly, but, you know, not from inside. But it was kind of interesting to still see this architecture around the escalators, because that's a little different than normal. I know I talked an awful lot during this video, but there was a lot of history to go over, especially with the DeBartolo Corporation having this little museum inside the mall, and that was just incredible to see. I highly recommend, if you can make it out to this mall, to check it out for yourself. And I really appreciate you sticking all the way through the video till the end. If you'd like to see extra bonus content and member exclusive, you can check out the links on screen and in the description box below. I want to thank you for all your support and for watching this video, and I will see you on another episode of Urbex.